Welcome to Cornerstone Home Inspector Education Center. Tonight we have Josh Sullivan from Marvin Windows. He's going to do an overview of their products and give us some education on Windows and what to look for when we inspect. I'll ask everybody to mute their microphones at the beginning of this webinar. If you have any questions, try to type them into the chat box. And if you'd like to ask a question, you can unmute and then just remember to mute yourself at that point. I'll hand it over to Josh.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for your time tonight. I'm looking forward to talking with you guys. It's funny, this is very different from the people I normally talk to. Normally it's a whole bunch of sales guys who want to know how to better sell the product, and you guys are inspecting the product and making sure that everything's really set. So we're going to dig into a little bit, going to kind of give you a little bit of a commercial about what Marvin does and why we think we're a little bit different from some of the other companies. But in general, we're one of the big three manufacturers of windows and doors in the United States. Today's agenda, kind of what we're going to go through. We're going to go a little bit through our collection. Going to go about the insulation and how applications, identifying, reporting issues a little bit. Obviously, that's a little bit different with sales guys compared to what you guys do. So I want to keep it, but really what to look for. So sometimes, 95% of the time, when a window fails, we find that it's less to do with the window all the time, and it's usually with insulation. That's a lot of time with air and water getting in, infiltration, and then condensation on a glass. Especially, in these cold winter kind of months, we get that call a lot about, possible, window failures and condensation, what to look for, and when it's a bad thing and when it's, simply the window doing its job. Basically, Marvin's a family-owned business. So our CEO is Paul Marvin. It's over 100 years old. So 1912, the company who signs my checks is the Marvin Cedar and Lumber Company. So that is still our official name. And obviously, we don't do anything really with lumber. Still make some things with cedar. But in about 1924, just after World War I, Bill Marvin, who it really started expanding into windows and doors. At that time, it was basically whoever was building the house would custom make the windows for whatever openings, doors on site. So he kind of saw an influx of business and of home building and standard size windows, different kind of things. So they would literally make a whole bunch of windows, load them in the back of a station wagon, and then send them on their way. Today, we have over 7,500 employees, over 17 locations across the United States. Our main headquarters are in War Road, Minnesota. So it's way up north, about 6 miles from the Canadian border, on Lake of the Woods, is our main headquarters and our main production facility. We have about a 2 million square foot. I like to say it's a wood shop up there, but we employ about 2,200 people up there, building some of our really specialty kind of shapes. And then obviously we go all the way across the United States. Here, this is actually out of date because our Enfield distribution center in Enfield has now closed, and then we've reopened one 5 times the size in Windsor, Connecticut. So that is our distribution center for the East Coast. Overall, we sell 400 different products, 17 different window types, 14 different window types, 7 door types, and then out of 4 different materials. Mainly, that's one of the things that we're going to, really talk about the difference with Marvin, and just know when you guys are inspecting windows, know kind of what you're looking at and, kind of the difference. So basically we have 3 main collections. The signature collection is broken down. So we don't have good, better, best. We have an expansion of options. Our essential products. This is Marvin used to have multiple brands in the umbrella. So there was Marvin, which was known as our clad product, and then Integrity, which is our Ultrex product. So it's a pultruded fiberglass. So it was an all Ultrex, which now is our essential. So it's Ultrex that fiberglass on the interior and exterior. That's going to be the more streamlined. It's going to come in the limited sizes, limited amount of products. We'll dig into those a little bit. Elevate's kind of in the middle. So that's going to be an Ultrex on the exterior and then wood on the interior. But for all intents and purposes, it's an Ultrex window. If you were to remove the wood from it, it would still operate as a normal window would. It's really just that wood to give it the warmth of wood. And then there's our signature, which is what Marvin's really known for. That's an aluminum clad product. So doors and windows, both in that aluminum clad, and it's going to be an extruded aluminum, but it's again going to be that wood window or door. If you were to remove the aluminum cladding, is really on the exterior. So now I'm going to go in reverse order. But so our signature, again, nearly limitless opportunities. This is really where Marvin's kind of earned its stripes. This is the window that we really built our reputation and our name on. So it's going to be that aluminum, extruded aluminum on the exterior. It's going to be a 70% Kynar finish. So it's an AMA 2605. So basically it's a 20-year guarantee against chalking and cracking. It's going to be really the best performing window that we make. And it's going to be that one material on the exterior of all doors and windows. There's going to be one material with that 70% Kynar finish in that AMA 2605. So it's going to be really, really strong, really perform well in winters. And then over the long term, it's going to really stand up well to the elements and especially what we see here in Connecticut. And then on the inside of that is going to be wood, and it's going to be, again, painted black, stains, 6 different stains, multiple different kind of materials. We actually have 2 wood scientists on Marvin payroll that their main job is to make sure that the products that we're building and creating are designed to last. So that's one of the things. We are not like aspen isn't a random wood, but they will never make a window out of aspen because it's a material that doesn't last a long time. Everything we just said. So this is also going to be, we're going to have our most amount of products. So for windows, we're going to have casements, awnings, pictures. We have something called the venting picture window. We have double hung, single hungs, gliders, specialty shapes, round tops, bows, bays, and then corner windows. Obviously, this is not something that you guys are going to remember or really matter to you, but just something to, again, know what you're looking at as you're doing. You guys see all different kind of windows. They obviously all operate and perform differently. So it's something you always want to keep in mind. And then for doors, we have in-swing, out-swing. We have a 3-inch silent rail door and then French doors as well. Sliding doors, sliding French doors, multi-slide doors, bifold doors, commercial, and then a lift and slide. And then one of the newest things that Marvin has started offering is automated doors. So the door side has been, kind of around for a long time, but that's usually going to be Summit Automation is the main company that builds a lot of those motors and belt drives that open and close those doors. Same kind of companies that Anderson would use. Marvin uses. It's a third party. But then we've also started expanding into the automated windows space as well. So it's actually motors and actuators out of the medical industry. So there's like 10,000 hours on it. Stops are going to look everything exactly like a normal window. Our Elevate collection, again, it's going to be that mid-tier. So it's going to be an Ultrex. It is going to be, the exterior of the window is completely a pultruded fiberglass, which is a Marvin exclusive product. So there's a lot of different companies. So it's a composite material. So obviously a composite material is 2 different materials to create a unique new material. So composite fiberglass is a composite. All composites are not fiberglass. So the fiberglass obviously is something that they use a lot of different products in now, especially in the construction industry. We've seen everything from like rebar, we've seen ladders for years, a lot of different sidings and different things. So what Marvin uses is a pultruded fiberglass. So it's basically pulled through, injected with resin. It's a thermoset material. So it's heated up to 400 degrees and then acrylic capping gets applied. So it's about 4 mils thick. And again, the one material on the exterior of an Elevate door or window is Ultrex. And it's going to be, again, that AMA 2605. It is not going to be the Kynar finish like on the the extruded aluminum. It's again going to be an acrylic capping, so it actually can be sanded and then painted with normal latex paint, and it will not affect the warranty. But again, it's going to have that 20-year guarantee against cracking, chalking, and things. Really designed to last a long time. On that interior, again, it's going to be, I'm always hesitant to say a veneer finish, but it's about a 1/4 inch pine on the interior that you can get clear painted, white, black, or just bare, and then you can paint it or stain it anything of your own. And one of the things that really differentiates Marvin is always our fit and finish, the materials that we use, and then the performance of the windows. So the fact that we use a pull-treated fiberglass, one of the things that we don't have, you'll see it a lot of times in vinyl windows, vinyl welds at the corners. All our miters are really tight because the material itself doesn't expand and contrast during heat. So, in the state of Connecticut, we can have 100 degree temperature swing over the course of a year. A vinyl, 6-foot piece of vinyl would expand or contract about 1/4 of an inch, where with a piece of Ultrex, it's about a 64th of an inch. So we have really tight tolerances and really clean finished mitered corners at each of the things too. So the overall performance of the unit.
We have a question, Josh.
Yeah.
We'd like you to speak about the differences between swing in and swing out exterior doors, including any expected issues with improperly installed exterior doors that were designed to swing in, but reverse installed as swing out.
Yeah. So with Marvin, it's pretty tough to do just because it's going to be completely different materials on it. And but yeah, I'm sure you guys have seen it all over the years. I'm looking out at this, the group and I see, a lot of people that seemed pretty established, and I'm sure you've seen kind of crazy things. Obviously with swing doors, you're going off a hinged side. So you're always going to want to make sure that you're biting into it. One of the things that talks about in our directions is removing one screw from each hinge and then driving a 3-inch structural screw into the framing of the door. So whenever we see lean or, doors that don't close correctly, a lot of times they've forgotten to remove one of those, the small screws, and basically install a large structural screw. If you ever see things, so when Marvin sells anything, it's the frame of the unit, the sill, everything's going to be kind of as one. So it's not like the old, if you have like an interior door to where you could really swap it easily. But again, I'm sure you guys have seen some wild and crazy things. So for the most part, I did just go to a job site the other day and they had installed the window completely backwards. It was a stationary direct set that they flipped around and had the fiberglass on the inside and the aluminum on the outside, or the vice versa. So it happens. Any other questions for now?
I think we're good for right now. You can continue. Thank you.
All right. And then obviously one of the differences is, we talked about signature. You can, again, get crazy SDLs in there, really different kind of shapes, round tops. It's a little bit more straightforward. You can do rectangle SDLs on this, but this is, again, it's going to be 80 pounds of pressure actually get applied to attach the SDLs, the simulated divided light, onto the sash. So a lot of times if you ever see SDLs coming off, different kind of things like that, that means they really had to go out of their way to like remove them. Again, that's going to be more of a cosmetic thing than a performance thing. The majority of the glass that we use is going to be argon filled, and I'm sure that you guys know argon is a colorless, odorless gas that is insulating basically the two panes of glass. So that's again something that Marvin uses. Cardinal is our glass supplier. They supply Pella, they supply Anderson. They're the biggest float glass company in the world, and that's always going to carry a 20-year warranty. And one of the biggest differences that we don't see seal failures a lot of times with Marvin products, obviously they still happen, but because the material is made out of glass and the exterior, the stiles and the rails of the sash are also made out of fiberglass, they expand and contrast at nearly the same rate, so we don't see a lot of the pinching during heat cycles as well. So it's another positive of using the fiberglass. Again, you're going to see each collection that we kind of go now, we're going to get a little bit more limited. But for windows, again, casements, awnings, double hungs, gliders, specialty shapes, but again, limited, round tops, but limited, bay and bow. For doors, in swing, out swing, sliding. Here, we don't call it a 3-inch sound rail. We call it a patio door. And then we have bifold doors, which again, it's that scenic door at really an affordable price. So our essential collection is our most limited in amount of options. And it's going to be that Ultrex, which is that pultruded fiberglass on the exterior and on the interior. Going to be super narrow stiles and rails on these units. And then we don't do simulated divided light, the SELs. Here it's only grills between the glass. So it's, again, a little bit more streamlined, and there's a little bit more limited in the options that you can do.
Can you request those? Can you request different movement of those grills? I see a lot of them now where they're pushing the grills to the outside, to get more view.
Yeah. So I mean, we have again, so on in the essential side, you can do them a little bit more limited. The grills between the glass have some benefits, so it's really easy to clean. And then they're definitely a little bit more of that cottage or prairie look, to where they're set out a little bit further rather than a little bit more of the traditional. Us being in Connecticut, we still have a lot of the traditional looking houses. And so those simulated divided lights are still very popular.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And one thing that I kind of discussed is how we have those rollers that get applied. It's a 3M, a double-sided tape that get attached. So a lot of times you'll see with like Anderson is they actually get added on after the fact. So this is not something that really you can add on. Again, you guys aren't wearing these. These are definitely much more composite. I mean, that's one of the things I just read, but much more cosmetic. But it's going to be that very, very strong, very large expanses of glass to where you can definitely offer it. And then, as we kind of discussed, again, we're going to be a little bit more limited. So we have those casements, awnings, gliders, double hungs, single hungs, pictures, very, very few round tops, and very few specialty shapes. Those are going to be a little bit more of the kind of like trapezoid style windows. And then for doors, we only have a sliding patio door. Again, this is going to be that kind of the customer who's looking to upgrade from vinyl. And then we use this a lot of times in a lot of commercial applications as well. So as I kind of discussed earlier, a lot of the issues, things that you guys will see a lot more are generally related to installation. So in the state of Connecticut, I've been told at least, the building, like if you look up the building code about how to install a window, they'll say see manufacturer's instructions, because every window manufacturer has specific ways for you to install their windows correctly, and they're the best person to kind of pass that buck along to. So some people like the way that Marvin windows are designed to be installed, and some people don't like them. Generally, the people who don't like it are very used to installing Anderson 400s, and they have a compression jam liner. And part of that compression jam liner means that you can put that window in a little bit crooked or a little bit off level, and it'll operate perfectly fine. We do not have a compression jam liner, so it's a little bit different. So we're going to kind of breeze through the steps about how to install and some of the ways things to look a lot of times. So really the way to start with it is rough opening prep. And part of that is we're going to want to have create a positive slope towards the exterior of the house. We always recommend to use a piece of beveled cedar siding, cut to be that space. You obviously see there's caulk down below on there, and you're going to do this to do that positive drain. Obviously, water management is most important with a window. Marvin Windows can be installed using multiple different WRBs. We see a lot of zip walls, a lot of different kind of ways to install it, and there's basically a way to properly install it always. So you're always going to want to use a sill pan. Again, this is doors and windows. We are, again, open to using different kinds of sill pans. A lot of people, the flexible self-adhering sill pan is the most popular version for windows. We see it a lot of use in doors as well. Every once in a while, I'll get a call about, like, oh, Marvin, you need to use copper sill pans, and absolutely not the case. Really, there's a lot of different versions. Everybody kind of has their own specific thing. But a sill pan is, again, water management is the number one thing that we're installing the units.
I'm going to break in for 1 minute to just give one of our codes. If you're watching this as a pre-recorded event, you have to send us MW484001. Thank you. Thanks, Josh.
So it's always, when we're installing these windows, specifically on Elevate's our number one selling window. For years, like I mentioned, we really made our company on the ultimate signature ultimate units. About the Elevate product was invented in 1994. It came out, and so it had always been really selling well, and would sell more units because it's less expensive. Over the last 3 years, it's actually started out selling not only unit wise but also dollar wise. So the window that we see installed the most is Elevate. There's some inherent flaws of Elevate, and part of it is the frame of the unit. There's a slight flexibility in it. This is something that was intentionally designed to be able to basically make it an affordable window. But things that we're really going to kind of talk about are specifically really important on Elevate. So, but level at the sill and plumb on the frame, on the interior and exterior. If you get these two things right, you're going to be overall in pretty decent shape. All our windows are always going to have a nailing fin on them for the most part, unless you get any of the insert units. The nailing fin is designed to center the window in the hole, not to install the unit itself. So basically, you would center it in the hole, make sure that you have an even on both sides of the hole, the top and the bottom. And then you would just really tack it in four roofing nails to keep that window centered. You would not be installing it through the nailing fin. Shims. So shims are your friend, especially when it comes to Marvin Windows. Shims are absolutely necessary. It calls it out multiple times in our instructions, but we're looking for shims from 4 to 6 inches from the head and at the sill, just to make sure that frame is properly supported. And then again at the check rail. So the check rail is where those two sash, kind of meet together. A lot of times, if we ever have windows that operate really tough, it's going to be either they're over shimmed or they're not shimmed, and there's actually flex, like I've discussed, in the frame themselves. So here's where you're going to want those shims. And you're going to see also the sill pan coming into the basement, but into the interior. But again, we're going to have that positive drainage towards the exterior. Again, it's all about water management. You can do everything that you want, but if there's a way for water to get in, it'll usually find a way.
We have a question. Nailing fin is for new install. What about retrofit install where siding is expected to be left in place?
Yep. So we offer insert windows that are basically, it's going to be a narrow frame and it's designed to kind of fit in the frame that's existing. And then it is a possibility to do kind of a through jam installation where we'd use jam jack screws. It's very infrequent. So if you're looking to reuse existing siding, we're probably going to be looking at doing insert windows that are going to fit inside that sill. But there's always kind of a way around it, and there's always unique situations. Once you have it installed, basically you're using friction of these shims to making sure that the unit is square. A lot of times here you'll see daylight between the sash and the frame at the openings, and that's usually a telltale sign that it wasn't properly shimmed. If the interior casing is up, this generally is a problem because it's really tough to add shims if the unit is fully trimmed. So you always want to kind of catch that ahead of time. Obviously, when you guys are going around and seeing that, we're going to take 3 measurements, and then that's how we're going to kind of discuss squares. Again, if you guys have squaring poles, I didn't know they existed before I started at Marvin, but we're looking to take 3 measurements up at the head, at the check rail, and then down by the sill. And you're looking for those should ideally be identical. And that's how you would make sure that there's not going to be any issues. There could always be different things, weather stripping, kind of issues. It is a manufactured product. There are always kind of delivery issues or issues of overuse, kind of getting ripped over the years. We'll kind of discuss a little bit how to go through that later. This is basically proper technique to fully install the unit. So we're going to be using everything from backer rod to spray foam, more backer rod, and then a back dam. So you're seeing there's multiple levels to prevent that water from coming to the interior. Because for the most part, this window is going to be when it's built, there's a lot of stop gaps and a lot of additional you can see how there's these Lexan corner keys everywhere. So those are all filled with sealant. There's multiple tests that kind of go through those. You're going to see those horseshoe shims are always the ones that we recommend. They're again going to be composite shims just because wood over time will eventually deform, rot. On the exterior, again, it's all about water management. So these are nailing fins at the corners, flashing tape, basically a 2x3 inch piece of flashing tape at a 45-degree angle at each of the corners. This is again going to be looking to do this in like a shingle pattern, basically starting with as we're building up the layers to where water is going to run down and away from any horizontal surfaces. This is one of the most controversial parts of all our installation. It is about installing a rigid head flash. There's like one little line about it and it talks about it, but if Marvin ever comes out and there's water infiltration, there's not a rigid head flash, they're going to let you know about it. But there should always be so there is basically a flexible head flash on the nailing fin of all Marvin products, but the rigid head flash is going to be needed as well. A lot of times, sometimes we'll have trim. You could put the rigid head flash above the, like if you're using a PVC kind of trim right on top of it. Again, you're going to want to have that rigid head flash in there as well. The final drip cap is not going to cut it. The other part that we always kind of run into is flashing tape. Again, this is going to be a non-butyl flashing tape is what Marvin is going to recommend. A lot of times, if you're using zip, we recommend that you use multiple zip products. If you're using Blueskin, use multiple Blueskin products. Tyvek, use all Tyvek products. This is always just helpful because you know that manufacturer is going to warranty that product because you're using all levels of their product, and they're all designed to work together. So this way you have nothing that would be working. But you're going to want to have that lapped up onto about a 1/4 inch up onto the frame of the unit. This is again is going to prevent any kind of water from getting in or around that nailing fin. At the bottom of any unit, we should never have that flashing tape. Basically, we want, if there's ever a way, if water somehow does get through it, we want to present it, have a way to exit. And so we're using, you can use it, basically a high pressure skirt would really be used up against anywhere in the water. So anywhere, on the sound, through the bottom of the state. But again, also if it's up on a hill, it's basically a piece of a WRB and then taped down and then 2 inches past each side of the jam. This is again just to prevent air from blowing up against the house and then finding any way in to drive water or air in. The biggest thing you always want to do too on doors. I went out to a job recently. They installed a ultimate door right across the street from the water, and they were complaining that water was continually getting in the house. They actually refinished the floors in the inside of the house twice. And I went there and I'm like, oh, well, that's silicone. That's not supposed to be there. So there was actually weep holes in the sill of the door that somebody had siliconed over to prevent water from getting in, but there was no way for the water to get out. So any water that was getting in was then going inside of the house. So we actually now have big yellow stickers to where it says, keep pathways clear. Condensation. So we get a lot of calls about condensation, and I'm sure you guys have seen this as well. Condensation is completely normal. It's actually a sign that your windows are working. On a hot day, if you have a cold beer, you have a cold glass of water, iced tea, whatever, and you go out inside of that thing, condensation forms when hot and cold meet. So on a door, it's usually about 30 to 50 degrees difference in temperature. You will get this condensation. If the condensation is on the inside of your window, this is when we get calls a lot saying that the seal is broken, my windows are leaking, I'm getting condensation on the inside of our units. Our service department won't laugh at you, but they will say that, yes, that's a sign that the window is doing its job, that there's too much humidity inside of your house. One of the things that building codes have established is really tight envelopes of houses. And a lot of times there is water. So if you're doing something like cooking soup all day in your house, the humidity of your house is past its normal ideal range. And things like this will happen, especially when it's cold outside. So it's usually going to be down the bottom of the sill. So it's a sign of high humidity in the home, fixing the humidity levels, checking vents, fans, HVAC systems, ideally basically wiping it off and removing that condensation is going to help, because we've talked about 2 of our different collections have wood on the interior. If you just have water sitting on wood, if it's painted, if it's stained, even if it's freshly painted or stained, water will always find a way. Wipe down. Regular maintenance and inspection. This is again, we've kind of talked about, that 20-year warranty. A lot of times people will think, the signature is our top of the line window, and it's made out of aluminum. People will ask a lot, is aluminum ideal near the ocean? There's lots of Marvin windows installed right on the ocean that have been there for a really long time. All windows require maintenance. It talks about it in our warranty. If you live in like 1 mile of the ocean, you need to wipe down with fresh water those units, because eventually salt, like we've kind of talked about, water will always find a way. Salt will do the same thing. If it just sits and is left to sit on any kind of material, eventually it will corrode that material. Same thing with the interior. You're always going to want to make sure to check everything. It probably does not need to get painted every year, but every few years, if you have sun just beating on one side of the house and that's getting through to your white or black interior finish or stained, eventually it will start to discolor those finishes. So maintenance is really important. The other thing that Marvin does that in this market in particular is we actually still offer wood units, and there's a lot of contractors, architects that still want wood. And Marvin does not sell an exterior finished wood product because we do not think that it's a finished product, that we will only sell it to you primed, and then you need to paint the exterior of those units, and those are, again, in the warranty, required to be maintained regularly.
How does the warranty work? So I'll do a home inspection.
Yep.
They'll call me up a year later. Hey, the seal's broken. It's a Marvin window. Say they know.
Yep.
What do they don't know who put it in? How does that work?
Yeah. So we'll basically every Marvin window in the top right corner is always going to have this. I don't know if you can kind of see it. There's basically a laser etched serial number. So it's going to talk about if it's a tempered window, it'll have that in the lower left corner. And then that upper right corner is going to have the Marvin logo, or it'll say integrity if it's, over 6 years old. And it'll have some different talk about whatever low E coating that it has. And then that serial number. So that serial number, you can go to any Marvin dealer. So I kind of talked about Marvin was a family-owned company. So we are only sold exclusively in independent lumber yards. So about 800 lumber yards across the United States. So in, Connecticut, Rings End, Interstate Lumber, East Haven, Ridgefield Supply, Country Lumber, Miners, Brantford Building Supply. We have a lot of dealers specifically in this market, and then throughout the Northeast, Woodbury Supply. But what you can do is you can basically take that number into any of those locations. They can actually pull up the original order, figure out wherever it's was sold through. But any dealer can service any window because Marvin's actually going to pay that. So one of the biggest differences with Marvin compared to a lot of other dealers is we have a 20-year glass warranty that's passed to us from Cardinal. So the glass is warranted against failure, again, stress cracks, different kind of things like that, seal failures for 20 years. The unit itself, the hardware is 10-year warranty on everything. And then we actually have a 5-year labor warranty. So if it's the windows within 5 years, and again, you're going to be able to look up all that from the serial number. And then in our CRM software that any dealer can look up, and they can show exactly what size that window door was, and then how they can basically all the information needed from it. So that's where they're going to be able to look that up from there. And then this middle picture is actually the on a lot of double hung sash or casements. This is on one of the sides if it hadn't been removed. This is literally just a sticker. But again, that serial number is always on that upper right hand corner. And then we're always going to want to see kind of a picture. So to help move your service along is always ideal. Like obviously this is a broken piece of weather strip, so you'd see whatever's broken. And then they always want to see a full picture of the interior and exterior, a full size of the unit, just so if they can see if there's any kind of issues with that. So that's where you're going to be able to get any of that kind of stuff. But really any dealer, and that's where you guys can kind of, build that relationship with. I think one of the biggest differences is Marvin is we have a lot of people around. So I'm one of 3 territory managers that cover the state of Connecticut. And so I go over into Westchester a little bit, and then there's one guy who goes over into Rhode Island as well. And there's another guy who's just exclusively in Connecticut. So we have a lot of people out in the field that can go through. I'm on a lot of service calls every day that we're going in and talking about, issues, whether they're the swinging doors or there's something not working with the hardware. Marvin is always really happy to help. And I think that's one of the biggest differences of working for a family-owned and operated company, is that, they have a lot of pride in their work. We all do. So I think that was my last one. Yeah.
Okay.
Not bad, but before the second 20-minute warning.
Yeah. So I'm going to give that code, and then we're going to see if there's any questions. So your second code is MW210024. Um, I'm trying to think, cost wise, with the Marvin window compared to your competitors, and with the way the new world is, how are we looking for, like, you know, competitiveness?
Yeah, I mean, so Anderson's the 300-pound gorilla in the room. So they are the biggest window and door company in the United States. We are right on target with them in the Elevate Essential. Really, when you kind of compare apples to apples in there. Obviously, I'm a little bit of a homer, so I'm gonna think that Marvin's a little bit better. But like an Anderson 400 window and an Elevate, if you're talking about white on white, we're gonna be right on target on price. Once you start adding things like black is the very sexy color of exterior. Um, Windows right now, we'll be able to beat them on price on black, and 400 has four different materials on the exterior of the unit. Um, and if they're all painted black, obviously you guys know better than anybody. Black's going to be a color that's going to fade if it's in any kind of sun. So you're going to be able to have a much better product for a longer period of time with that as well. And then as far as manufacturing, we're all looking at different things. The cost of aluminum, obviously, we use aluminum, but everything that we can get, we generally are manufactured in the United States. All the windows are manufactured in the United States, but hardware and different kind of things like that, we always like to source from the United States as well. So we're ideally thinking we're gonna be able to benefit from that. We've seen a lot of European manufacturers really coming down kind of hard with like Clar, Echo Windows, Rhea, from different things. So we'll kind of see how that works. We do have another collection called Modern, which is designed to kind of go after a little bit more of that super contemporary, a little bit more of that European commercial style as well.
And as for home inspection, when we go in, I don't know if you know this, but we only have to inspect. If they open, they close. We look for fogging,
Yeah,
broken seals. We also look to see if the window's sitting too low to the ground. Does it need to be, to the floor? Does it need to be tempered? Glass. Is there anything else that you can think of that we should be looking at when we're inspecting?
no, I mean, I think window operating control devices, WOCDs, is something that you guys probably have because it's a little bit more on the new install when it's getting installed. But those are like the fall prevention. Basically, it's like the on a double hung window. It has two different ways that you open it. So when you open it, it can only go up 4 inches for falls, and those are kind of built into the code for different. Um, Basically, the drop has to be so much. The sill has to be in so many inches of the floor. But that's just another thing that it's like a safety thing. But that's again on like a new install that you'd have to see. I don't think so. And again, all tempered windows by law have to be marked. So if you're ever looking for them, you're obviously looking in that lower left corners. Usually have that temper bug in there. And then obviously there's a lot of different places that you need to have that, and you have those regular Joes who are replacing a window, and they try to save a little bit of money by not going with the tempered unit.
Right. And I don't know if this is a smart thing, but I always tell my clients, especially who have central air conditioning, because I'll go into a house and the windows will look brand new, and they just don't look like they've been opened and closed in years.
Yeah,
And I tell my people, you got to open up and close a window at least once
yeah,
a month. Clean
yeah,
the jams, clean the sill. The
yeah.
same thing with Marvin.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, that's part of that maintenance for a year. I mean, there are so many people with air conditioning and HVAC systems that are, the windows never get opened or closed. Doors in certain rooms never get open and closed. And because they're all those weather stripping or, you know, rubber, vinyl, different kind of things. And they'll learn that shape. And then, once you open them, it'll lead to a crack, and then you won't really notice it until, the winter time comes. Um,
Yeah.
but it's
And
always
as
ideal to operate
Yeah,
once
yeah,
a year.
and as for the moisture intrusion too, with the humidity, it's funny that came up because a couple of years ago I had an inspection out in Litchfield, and these were buyers from New York during COVID. And I get a call about 3-4 months later. Hey, we moved into the house, and all the windows have condensation. And we had a contractor out here, and he says all the windows need to be replaced. And it's going to be $50,000-$60,000 in new windows. I just started laughing. I was like, you need to control the humidity in the house, and we have to look at other things. Those windows are perfect. And we had somebody else go out, and he was like, yeah, someone's trying to rip you off. So that doesn't happen a lot, but you will get those calls about that.
Yeah, we'll definitely, we get a lot of them kind of as the seasons change. A lot of time when it starts getting cold out, and there are some we do like an ice test to where you kind of like freeze one side of the glass with like kind of like a canned air to clean your keyboard. You basically flip that thing over, freeze the glass, and then you should, if there's a true seal failure, you'll see the basically condensation appearing in between the glass. That's when it's going to really be the seal failure.
Another question, and then we'll wrap up if anybody doesn't have anything, because that's fine. I want to hold you all night. The way the economy is, the way the world is, we'll come in, we'll do an old Cape, an old Ranch with the windows from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and those windows are done. They need to be replaced. But like everybody else, housing's very expensive. The interest rates are up. And that's not a priority for people. And they'll say to me, can I just do a couple of windows each year and then wrap my way around the house? Christmas present, 2 windows, birthday present, 2 windows. Is the consistency of the window, is that an issue? Like if it takes them 3 or 4 years to get done, if they use the same brand and model, would that be an issue?
Yeah. So, I think that's where maybe Andersen does something a little bit better than Marvin. So Marvin, every window that we make is actually built specifically for you. We don't have an inventory of windows anywhere in the United States at a factory. When you order a window, a Marvin window, it gets built specifically for you when you order it. Whereas Andersen doesn't. So they sell through big box stores like Home Depot. So that Andersen 400 is basically a 34-year-old model. Because they can't change anything, because if they do any kind of upgrade to that unit, then Home Depot will be like, hey, here you go. We got, $3 million worth of inventory of this product that now is obsolete. So you could really do it with them. The idea with Marvin is all the different collections are very interchangeable, and there's a lot of consistency. So one of the things that Marvin does really well is we do historically accurate windows. So that a lot of architects like them, whether they're the cuts, whether they could be aluminum clad, but they're basically designed to what things looked like 50, 60, 100 years ago. So we do a lot of work with the National Park Service. You can do custom colors, but a lot of times if you get the stone white, it's going to be the same thing. And that ebony black is going to look exactly the same, 10 years from now. So that's where you could kind of go with that. And because Marvin is a 100-year-old family-owned company, a lot of the random like Bahama brown colors, which is really popular up in Litchfield County, you're going to be able to get that same color because it's consistently, because people in those historically accurate houses want the same thing that they have existing in there. They just want a better performing window.
Exactly. Well, I want to thank you for your time. This was very informative. And if anybody has any questions, speak up or forever hold your peace. I will post this information up on the website with your, the site. But this was very informative, and again, I thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Josh. Nice job.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.